we cannot finish the road because that particular plot where the bridge should have ended and the road joined Mombasa Road, there is something that has been built there. And the owner is seeking compensation, which is more expensive than the total construction cost of that road from Mombasa Road to Thika Road. So we really need to empower the National Land Commission. Remember that in the past, the President and the Commissioner of Lands would allocate land under national land policy. National interest prevail. And we must empower to ensure no more allocations, whether public or community land, is done anywhere.
All right, thank you. But you said that some of your competitors were land grabbers and you were not.
I said I cannot be accused, so I'm best suited to enforce because I have never grabbed or allocated any land.
All right, thank you very much. Honorable Karua, campaigning in Marafa on 25th of November last year, you said, ukiangalia wagombeaji wengine, utakuta kwamba ile ardhi ya jamii yao ni kama nusu ya Kenya. Ndiyo. Ukimpelekea mtu kama huyo kura yako, ataweza kutatua matatizo ya ardhi kweli?
Hiyo ni kweli kabisa, na vile nilikuwa na maanisha ni ya kwamba, for instance, my friend Uhuru Kenyatta, the family is one of the largest, if not the largest, landowners in Kenya. And if it comes to resettlement of squatters, we'll be targeting idle land, seeking to compensate the owners where appropriate. And I do honestly believe, even as I stand here, that for that reason, such a person would be less suited to implement the what people expect of the land, whatever. And to go further, there are some. His running mate is also in court over a land that is allegedly grabbed from an IDP. So those are the issues that I was talking about. I will not stand here and deny something I have said.
Mr. Kenyatta, do you own, or your family at least, own half of Kenya? And what do you have to say about what Ms. Karua just talked about?
I think I'll begin by saying I'd be very keen for my honorable sister here to take me to that land, because then maybe I can begin doing something about it. First and foremost, this issue of land is a very emotive issue in Kenya. And unfortunately, the manner in which it has been handled has not been a very professional or a manner that is really seeking to find solutions. What makes me happy today is the fact that we today, under our new constitution, have a National Land Commission, which therefore means we have an independent body that is not tied to anybody or answerable to anybody, that is supposed to help us resolve and bring about a solution to the land question, allowing Kenyans for the first time to move to find the land answer. We, as a Jubilee Coalition, have, in very big detail, laid out how we intend to deal with the land question. By providing the land answer, by ensuring that the Independent Land Commission is given full support to execute its mandate. I have said very clearly that that mandate does not involve putting anybody aside. Everybody must stand and be ready to be investigated. Everybody who has been accused of impropriety, the Land Commission should deal with it, starting with myself. But I'd like to remind you, till to date, save for the rumors that have been peddled around, nobody has ever pointed out and said that I have been involved in impropriety in land anywhere in this country.
So how much land does your family own? Because there is a contention here. Some people are saying it's half the country. Some people have said 500,000. Probably tonight is an opportunity for you to clear this matter once and for all.
My family and myself own land. And I personally also own land. And we consider land to be a factor of production. We have not, in any place, acquired any land illegally, except through willing buyer, willing seller, and to use it as a means of production to boost our own economy. And that is what we have been doing and have established and are on record. The Honorable Prime Minister has mentioned the fact that land is not an issue, is an issue, that we have these extensive tracts of land, half provinces. Today my sister is talking about half the country. He has been in charge of this government for the last 5 years as Prime Minister. The Minister of Lands was appointed by him. To date, there is nothing that they have put forward to prove those justifications.
Prime Minister, Mr. Raila Odinga, he says that you have been quite literally in charge of the Lands Ministry. You've been saying, recently you said in Kapenguria that he should give some land to IDPs, and yet the Minister for Lands, James Orengo, is directly supervised, actually appointed by yourself. What have you done? It's been 5 years. Why haven't you taken him to court?
Well, Joe, let me begin by saying that I believe that in this country, there is enough land for each one of us needs, but there is not enough land for each one's greed. Land, as you know, was at the center of the struggle for independence of this country. It is a shame that today you go to the coast and you find people, they are squatters in their own ancestral land. They don't have titles. The same thing you find in Central Province and also in the Rift Valley. This issue was never settled. That's why it has remained contentious up to now. What we did was first to have the legal framework, the new constitution, which has got a very elaborate chapter on land. Secondly, we now have also a national land policy, also developed through the stewardship of my Ministry of Land. Then we also have now a National Land Commission. So we now have a legal framework to deal with these issues of land policy. And we are saying that the commission will be enabled to work independently. Ask yourself, why did the president refuse to gazette or to appoint the commissioners all this time, despite the fact that even the court ordered him to do so? Because of vested interests. Vested interests who do not want to see proper reforms on land. And these interests are somewhere else. We are not saddled with issues of land. But we have got people here running for this in these elections who have got cases. My brother has got cases, issues on land ownership. There are others who have got cases in land. You cannot allow hyena to protect your goats. And that's why you're saying that we are better suited.
Your time is up. I believe your brother you're referring to is Mr. Kenyatta. Please.
Thank you. I've just heard my good brother Raila say that I have many cases pending before court. I'd like him maybe just to cite a few.
Mr. Odinga.
Didn't get that.
Yes, he says you've mentioned him as having some cases in court, and he doesn't seem to know which ones they are.
No, I say some people, his running mate is known to be having cases with his own neighbors in court. I'm saying that me and my colleague, my running mate, are not saddled. We have no conflict of interest as far as land ownership is concerned.
Let me expand this conversation a little bit and bring in Professor Kiyapi. The question being raised here appears to be about historical injustices with regard to land. And you want to be president. And the last time I checked, in the neighborhood where you come from originally, there have been issues raised about historical injustices. The Maasai community, for example, talks about this a lot. As president, how would you deal with it? And just tying into the conversations we've had here tonight.
In one of my campaign trails, I actually raised a question which was not captured in the media. And I said that it's unfortunate that every election time, this issue comes up, and yet almost everybody here except Dida has been in Parliament where this matter could have been soberly discussed and some way forward developed, except, of course, in the new constitution. But land in Kenya is a very serious matter because even the formation of Kenya as a country, it was a land issue. Some communities were displaced. Some individuals are displaced. So when we talk about the land issue in Kenya, it's a very complex matter which touches not just on a family or a community, but very many communities, whether you are in Coast, whether you are in Rift Valley, whether you are in Turkana, whether you are in urban areas. And as president, I would like to look at it in 3 ways. Number one, I would like to use the legal mechanism now we have, the new constitution. There are already 3 acts that are out: the Land Act 2012, the Land Registration Act 2012, the National Land Commission Act 2012. Let us use this framework. But having said that, we must have a process which is transparent and accountable, involving the people that have issues, contentious issues over land. It is not a question that we keep bringing up every time we have election and somebody saying, I'm going to fix. There's no one person who can fix this matter. It requires really honesty, and it requires the rule of law, but also commitment on the part of government. Finally, why is there no a computerized registry in the lands office? Last week, a colleague of mine came to me and said I should help him get his file which was lost. Why at this age and era are we still talking about lost files? We can computerize that so that it helps
Your time is up, Professor. Mr. Mwite, you have also talked a lot about land grabbing, and you recently talked about it when you were campaigning in Mwatate. From where you sit, what is these historical injustices that we keep talking about with regard to land?
We need to go back to the colonial times. Coast Province, you know, when you drive from Mombasa towards Malindi, those Saiso estates, King George V, very unfairly, by the 3 governments, because even titles mostly are given to upcountry people, not to the people ambao asili yao ni huko pwani. Central Province is another hot area. Rift Valley is another hot area. Where we want to move Kenya to is to a situation where we all accept willing seller, willing buyer. For us to get to that situation, we must address those historical injustices, including land that was irregularly alienated. You see, power in the president, the Commissioner of Lands, is held on trust for the Kenyan people. If I'm the president today, or in those days because it's no longer possible now, I have no right to go dishing out land to my political cronies and supporters and what have you. So those issues are the issues to be addressed by the National Land Commission. We now have a very good Chapter 5 in the Constitution. We've got the National Land Commission, we've got the National Land Policy. What is required is to provide the enabling environment for the National Land Commission to do its work, do it in accordance with the Constitution and the law. If you bought land, you have nothing to fear. If it was irregularly...
Thank you very much. You have said that you will repossess grabbed land as president. How will that happen?
Yes, I would make very strong representation as a government. It is not now for the government. It's not for the Safina government to do so, because we would be bound by the Constitution. We would make strong recommendations, representations to the National Land Commission to do exactly that. They've got the powers to do that. Land that was irregularly allocated, they've got power to cancel those titles. We would encourage them. We would invest resources in identifying. We would want to see
thank you. Your time is
Georgia
up.
Land Commission implemented, the Dongo Land Commission.
Your time is up, Mr.
And
Mwite.
so that we can settle the IDP.
Thank you very much. Let me bring in Mr. Dida here. Historical injustices with regard to land, do they exist? Does it bother you that some people own a lot of land?
Well, historic injustice, this started when the Mzungu came, and very few Europeans were allocated 20% of the most fertile land. When they left, the Kenyatta regime took advantage of that. The Moi regime took advantage of that. And may I just read the cry of a Kenyan here? It's not my 2 minutes. It is the Kenyan. Just assume that somebody has...
Well, it's within your 2 minutes, Mr. Dida. You are doing it on behalf of that Kenyan.
Now somebody says, Kiambu residents who live in colonial villages have called on Prime Minister Raila Odinga and Lands Minister James Orengo to address their resettlement plans before they leave office. We have been living in deplorable conditions in these colonial villages which was started in the early 1950s. And then he says, he challenged Deputy Prime Minister Uhuru Kenyatta to dismantle the remaining colonial villages in Kiambu because it is his home. He accused Uhuru of neglecting residents, saying he holds huge chunks of land formerly owned by residents. The government, the Prime Minister, was found during this campaign season saying they have land they acquired illegally and they should be ready to surrender it. If somebody has stolen land, who is supposed to correct this and discipline this? This is the government. But the Prime Minister goes around saying, I'm not yet the government, I just got half a bread. I will work on this. That can never work. My government will do 4 things. 1, education. Kenyans must be educated on the contents of Ndungu Commission, Ndungu report. Who has stolen the land? Permanent secretaries, directors, everybody in this office is a big thief of land. It in fact dwarfs the Anglo-leasing and the Goldenberg issue. Number 2, implementation of the Ndungu report, the national land policy.
That's your time is up, Mr. Dida. Mr. Kenyatta, you probably need to respond because he has mentioned you, whoever the author of that is.
Well, I have no idea who the author of that report is. But what I can say categorically and clearly is that there is nothing in that statement that is true. I have said severally, I have never, save for the rumor-mongering, been accused of any impropriety in terms of grabbing anybody's land. Land that we own as a family is land that has been purchased on the basis of willing buyer and willing seller. At no instance whatsoever. However, we do recognize that there is need to deal with this problem, not from an emotional point of view, but from a practical point of view. And that is why we have said, for example, in our own manifesto, that what we intend to do is to ensure that 67% of the land mass in this country, which remains unadjudicated, is adjudicated so that communities and individuals can begin to use that land as a factor of production as opposed to the way it is currently now. And I believe that we want to move to a society where Kenyans can own land that they can build property on, farm, increase production in this country, as opposed to the manner in which we have handled it so far, which really has just focused on speculation, has just focused on playing on people's emotions, as opposed to actively trying to find a solution that will allow Kenya to move forward.
Do you find it necessary maybe to say how much land we are talking about?
Pardon?
Do you find it necessary to say how much land you or someone else in your family owns? Because that seems to be a major point of speculation that you keep referring to.
I really don't, unless you insist that I do. But the most important aspect is the fact that, as I have always stated, no organization from anti-corruption to the Ministry of Lands has ever accused me of any kind of impropriety in land. Not at all, not anywhere.
So you wouldn't be willing to mention how much?
Well, like I'm saying, I do own land. That I do. And it is declared. You know...
How much, sir?
You know, we have now the Public Officers Ethics Act. And it clearly states that every public officer, of which I am one, and have been since the law
earmarked, we must zone our countries properly in terms of land utilization in advance and have that enforced and involve the county governments, because the county governments are the embodiment of the people in the local areas. They must be part of a process of finding the solution. And to me, I would say the Land Commission has got its job cut for them, and they must work hard on that particular issue.
Mr. Mwite, the Nubian community that Fatima comes from claim original ownership because they were settled there by the British government, and they're the only people who die and get buried in Kibera. How is your government going to ensure that they can sleep easy, knowing that no government is going to continue dispossessing them of land which they have?
By accepting them as Kenyans, equal to the rest of us. They do not know any other country. They have been here. It is their ancestors who are settled here. I would give them titles. I would do an inventory. I would get the Land Commission to do an inventory so that you don't get some other people also pretending to be Nubians, which is a pastime of the Kenyan people. But more importantly, looking at the land issue around, I would focus on land use quite a lot. I would encourage farming more efficiently, irrigation instead of depending on rain. We've got to begin to be able to feed ourselves. I would move towards contextualizing use of land and the land issue in the wider economic context. I would close corruption. I mean, we recently paid off 4.4 billion for a fertilizer factory that we never had. If that factory had been built, farmers would today be paying 300 shillings for 90 kg for fertilizer instead of the 1,000, 3,000, depending on the type of the fertilizer that they are paying now. Land is one of the assets we have in terms of the resources as a country. So it's not just land ownership, but land use. But unless we address the historical injustices, as long as people, for example, in Rift Valley, are feeling shortchanged, then the insecurity will always be there. Address the root causes, and we move towards willing seller, willing buyer. Because even this issue of buying alternative land for IDPs, what is the guarantee that they are also not going to be chased away? When are we going to have adequate security so that those people who were chased out of their land go back to that land?
Thank you, Mr. Mwite. Mr. Odinga, you've been MP for Langata, which includes the place where Fatima comes from. Surely, after nearly 2 decades there shouldn't be issues like that coming from a constituency you've been leading, and yet you want to become president. What assurance are you going to give Fatima tonight?
Kibra in Nubian means forests. They were settled there by the British before the First World War. Now, we have seen an influx of people going into that area. Originally, it was over 5,000 acres. It has dwindled to right now, it's only 600 acres. And the population there is over 500,000 people. So the issue of issuing individual titles does not arise. It's impossible. I have dealt with this matter for a long time with the government when I was in the opposition, and then when I was in the government. I've also discussed with the Nubian community there. We've agreed on a communal title, not individual titles. The area has been surveyed, and we have earmarked a particular portion of it for the Nubian community. They themselves have also some disagreement. Some went to court, and there's been an injunction. But going forward, what we want to do is to see a comprehensive reform of land using the National Land Commission, so that as we experience rural-urban migration, we don't end up with slums in our cities, which is actually because of poor planning by the previous governments who kept on telling people, go back to the land, rudi mashambani. People had nowhere to go to. So my government is going to ensure that there's proper urban planning, because urbanization is a permanent feature. More and more of our people are going to be living in the towns. We're also going to ensure equity in terms of sharing of land in our country. Equal access to land for those people who need land for purposes of production, because it's a factor of production.
Thank you very much. Mr. Kenyatta, the Jubilee Manifesto barely makes mention of historical injustices. What comfort can Fatima get tonight from you as she grapples with this question of entitlement to their piece of land in Kibra?
I want to begin and go back again to the fact that we now have a land commission. We would seek to ensure that that commission is fully functional and give it full support. With regard to Kibra, I do agree that there is an issue, especially of the indigenous community that has been there, that has been denied or deprived of their land through the growing of the kind of informal settlements that we have seen, which has basically removed them from their land. We would work in conjunction with the National Land Commission to ensure that first and foremost, proper title is given to that land, and ensure that that title is given to the community that has resided and that has owned that land. Again, then working through them and working again with the influx of informal settlers in those areas. Work to unlock the value with the local community of that particular land so that, number one, we can enhance and start moving away from the kind of informal settlements that we have, especially here in Nairobi, but at the same time, ensure that we have wealth creation in those areas and start moving away from the informal settlements that we have seen mushrooming as a result of land being identified, belonging to nobody. We want that land to belong to somebody. In Kibra, we want that land to belong to the community that is there and to facilitate and to work with them to develop that particular land and unlock its true value and potential while working towards moving away from the kind of mushrooming informal settlements that we have seen develop, especially in our urban areas.
Mr. Kenneth, please.
Mama Fatma, I would ensure your land rights. Even if I was really to go through adverse possession, you really deserve to own that land. Should have had your title and the sanctity of it, and I'll do it. And to start with, at the last census, the population for Kibra was 186,000, not 500,000. Because the more we expound numbers, the more the problem looks bigger. And we need to sort it out. But I also want to say this. Government holds the radical title, which means you can be adequately compensated because you own the land. I do not want you to see yourself as a marginal person in my administration. I want everybody to enjoy equal rights on land so that this mambo of land can come to an end. You can feel that you are not marginal, you are part of Kenya, and that you are being treated adequately by your government. That is what my administration will assure you. Secondly, let me put it this way. We realize we have slums, but there are opportunities. In my slum upgrade plan, I realize that some of the slum areas are very expensive in terms of land, if you are to sell that land. And therefore, you must also take that advantage. Instead of just hanging in there, treat land like commodity. You probably could fetch better prices because it's next to a golf course on one side, and then settle elsewhere where there is more land. And that is why the land policy must be implemented, because there is land resettlement, there is land redistribution, and there is land banking, because we all need this for our own land use policies to make our country grow.
Mr. Dida.
I almost told the lady to wait for Jesus to come before she hinted a solution. But she hinted a solution. She said, I live in that place and I live there for so long. Leaders will come to mention and address this issue when they need the votes. We give them, they disappear. The next time this issue will be mentioned is when they win the votes. Now, Madam Fatuma, if you have known the interests of these leaders, why don't you vote them out? The only way is you get new people, sincere people who will address, because you have the experience. The other thing is, we should be very serious and very sincere. We should be honest. This is a difficult problem, a big problem, and when we came up with commissions, when we came up with policies, one thing you should know is that the same characters who destroyed Kenya are the same characters employed in these commissions. Nobody is coming from the sky. These are the same people, manipulated. I will take you there, you will do this, under instructions. How do you wrestle with your boss? So what I wanted to say is we were all proud of Willie Mutunga, but he's demoralized, and we are also shocked. And these are the same leaders. You know, if their interest is frustrated, under any circumstance, they want to clear that obstacle. They are just focused on, I must get it, whatever the cost. That should not be the way. What policies we have and the commissions will have can only work well if we get the right people. Fatuma should decide.
Thank you. Waheshimiwa wagombeaji wa urais, swali litakalofuata sasa litakuwa kwa lugha ya Kiswahili na ningesihi pia muweze kulijibu hivyo hivyo. Serikali kufikia sasa, na nitaelekeza swali hili kwa Bwana Odinga kwanza. Serikali kufikia sasa imetumia fedha nyingi sana kuwatafutia makao wale wakimbizi waliotimuliwa kutoka kwa makwao kutokana na tenda balua ya kisiasa iliyofuatia uchaguzi wa 2007. Ikiwa utachaguliwa kama rais, je, utafanya nini kuhusiana na ile ardhi ya asili walikotoka, kwa sababu walikotimuliwa kuna watu labda walichukua ama namna gani? Ama utasema kwamba yaliyopita si ndwele, tuendelee mbele, tuachane na yale mashamba?
Mambo ya wale ambaye walitimuliwa kwa makao yao ni swala nyeti. Serikali imejaribu kutotoa hii mambo, lakini sio rahisi vile watu wengine sangine wanafikiria. Maana kuna wale ambaye walifukuzwa na baada ya utulivu kurudi wakarudishwa kwao na wakaenda na wakajengewa manyumba kule walikuwa wametimuliwa. Lakini kuna wale wengine ambao walikuwa wana hofu kurudi huko ati kunaweza kuwa na marudio. Hawa wamepelekwa mahali zingine. Lakini kuna wengine ambao waliingia ndani ya hema ambaye hata ukimuuliza wewe ulifukuzwa wapi? Hakuna. Nasema wewe ni mtu ambaye alikuwa hana ardhi, anataka msaada kwa serikali apate ardhi. Hiyo vile vile ni jukumu ya serikali. Lakini sisi tutaangalia njia ya kusettle hawa watu. Kuna wengine ambao wamechukua settled. Na kuna wengine vile vile ambao walitolewa ndani ya msitu kama Mau kwa mfano, Embobut, Kipkorere, Mount Elgon. Lakini kumekuwa na shida juu ya mambo hii kwa sababu ya mseto ya serikali. Na watu wamekuwa wanatumia siasa kujaribu kuchafua majina ya watu wengine. Ukweli ya mambo ni ya kwamba wale ambao walikuwa wanahusika ni Wizara ya Fedha, Wizara ya Ofisi ya Rais, Wizara ya Special Programs na Wizara ya Ardhi na Kilimo. Lakini kwa pande zingine pesa ilikuwa ni adimu kupatikana. Pesa haikupeanwa, ndio sababu kwa mfano wale wa Mau wamebaki pale. Wengine vile vile walikuwa hataki kuwapeleka mahali mengine kwa sababu ya siasa vile vile. Ndio sababu hii maneno imeenda mpaka leo. Lakini sisi tutaona kwamba hii maneno imetatuliwa.
Muda wako umekwisha Bwana Odinga. Bwana Kenyatta.
Nataka kwanza nijibu waziri mkuu kwa swala ya kusema ya kwamba hakukuwa fedha. Na nimkumbushe ya kwamba wakati mimi niliondoka katika Wizara ya Fedha mwaka jana, kulikuwa katika Settlement Fund trustees zaidi ya karibu bilioni 2 ambaye ilikuwa imekaa zaidi ya mwaka mmoja bila kutumiwa. Na hiyo ni kumaanisha ya kwamba sio ukosefu wa fedha ambao umesababisha programu hii isiendelee. Shida ambayo imekuweko ni yale mambo ambayo imekuwa ikiendelea katika Wizara ya Ardhi, watu kubishania ni shamba gani itanunuliwa na ni wapi na nini. Na mambo haya yako katikati ndani ya Wizara ya Ardhi. Na hiyo ndio ukweli wa mambo, fedha ilikuweko.
Na Wizara ya Ardhi inasimamiwa na Bwana Orengo ambaye ameteuliwa na wewe waziri mkuu.
Hiyo maneno, hakuna ukweli ndani ya hiyo maneno ambayo waziri amesema. Kwa sababu inaitwa Settlement Trust Fund. Mwenyekiti ni Permanent Secretary katika Wizara ya Fedha. Alafu kuna PS Wizara ya Kilimo na Special Programs na ya Ardhi. Hiyo kamati ndio ilikuwa haikutoa pesa. Hiyo kamati kila mara kama wengine wanakwenda walikuwa hawako pale. Yeye mwenyewe pesa iko lakini haitumiwi kwa sababu yeye mwenyewe hajatoa idhini, na waziri wa fedha ni mmoja wa executive ministers kutoa idhini.
Ukweli uko wapi Bwana Kenyatta? Manake sasa ni
ukweli ni hivyo nimekuambia ya kwamba fedha zilikuweko, lakini mvuta ni kuvurute ya wale maofisa haswa katika Wizara ya Ardhi kusema ya kwamba shamba hili liko hivi, halitakikani, bei hii ni juu, bei hii ni kidogo. Mambo haya ndio ilizuia mashamba mengi kununuliwa, na ndio watu waweze kupatiwa hayo mashamba, haswa wale ambao walikuwa wameathirika katika uchaguzi wa 2007, na pia wale ambao walikuwa wametolewa kwa misitu kwa program ile ya kusema ya kwamba watatafutiwa pahali pengine.
Bwana Kenneth, umezungumzia hili swala la wale wakimbizi waliotimuliwa wakati ule. Tatizo limekuwa lipi?
Mimi nasikitika sana ya kwamba tunajua chanzo kilichofanya tuwe na wakimbizi ambao wako ndani ya nchi yetu. Ilikuwa ni uchaguzi kati ya rais, waziri mkuu na running mate wa waziri mkuu. Watu watatu. Hawa watatu ndio walichukua wadhifa wa namba 1, namba 2 na namba 3 katika coalition. Hali wale watu ambao waliumia ambao waliathiriwa kutokana na huo uchaguzi, wengi bado wako kwa hema. Yale marumbano ama marushiano nasikia hapa sasa ni ya kutaka kurushiana maneno. Ni kwa nini? Ni kwa nini sisi hatukujiuliza kwanza hawa watu walikuwa na makao, ama walitoka wapi, ama walitimuliwa wapi, na kwa nini hawakuregeshwa kule? Kwa nini tunaanza
kwa hivyo ukiwa rais utawaregesha kule?
Mimi nipe siku 100, sitaki kuona Mkenya ambaye ni mkimbizi katika nchi yake. Kuna njia, hata haya ambao umesikia hapa, nikiwa rais nitakuwa naita mawaziri na waambia nyorosha hii kitu haraka sana, hawa watu waingie pale. Inaonyesha ya kwamba huduma ambayo serikali inatoa kwa mwananchi wa kawaida haimfikii, na ni marushiano iko kati ya wizara, na ni muhimu sana tuelewe ya kwamba ni heshima ya Wakenya, na ambayo ni muhimu, ni lazima tuone inaonekana. Na kama kuna shida katika wizara ya ardhi, tuelezwe kuna shida na haikutatuliwa, na ndio bado tuna wakimbizi katika nchi yetu.
Hebu tujumuishe Bwana Mudavadi katika mazungumzo haya, manake umekuwa katika serikali, umetajwa pale ulikuwa naibu wa waziri mkuu katika serikali mahuluti. Je, shida hii ya kuweza kuwapatia makao wale watu waliotimuliwa kutokana na ghasia tulizoshuhudia nchini imetokea wapi?
Shida hii ndugu yangu, kwanza nataka niseme ningependa sana kuona kwamba hatuna wakimbizi wa kindani kwa sababu ya siasa leo na hata kesho kutwa. Shida ambayo ilitokea na ukweli ni lazima usemwe ni kwamba pesa ambazo zilikuwa zimetengwa ama zimetengwa, kuna wale ambao wana mashamba makubwa na wanajulikana, wengine wao ndio wanaenda kule kupeana mashamba yao yanunuliwe, alafu wanajaribu kuweka mnada wa bei ghali kwa haya mashamba, alafu serikali inashindwa kulipa bei ile yao ambayo wanataka.
Kwa nini? Kwa hivyo nani awajibike? Nani awajibike? Maana kulikuwa na afisa wa serikali wanasimamia.
Hii ni hali ya tamaa, na ndio kwa sababu nasema ile tume ambayo imewekwa sasa, tume ile ya mashamba, yani Land Commission, hii tume ikifanya wajibu wake vizuri, watatatua jambo hili. Kwanza, kuna wale wanashika mashamba, alafu wanangojea. Kwa mfano, naweza toa tu mfano. Ukienda kule Manda Bay, upande wa Lamu sasa, kuna wengine wameenda huko tayari kwa sababu wanajua kuna port mpya inakuja. Wamenyakua mashamba juzi tu, sio zamani, juzi. Wanangojea sasa walipwe na serikali ati port ndio ijengwe. Sasa mchezo kama huu ni lazima Land Commission ichunge, na tumeshindwa kuharakisha kurudisha hawa kwa makao yao kwa sababu kuna wale ambao wana mashamba na wamekaa wametia kambi kule kwa Ministry of Lands kwa sababu wanataka bei ghali. Mimi naambia wale wanahusika na mambo ya valuation katika mambo ya mashamba, tafadhali wewe Mkenya ambao unafanya kazi pale, hakikisha kwamba unatoa valuation ambayo ni ya halali, alafu walipwe, tupeane mashamba kwa watu wetu. Lakini huu mchezo wa kusema ati tunangojea, mimi nashangaa. Hata mimi nashangaa kwa nini Peter Kenneth anazunguka kwa mambo mengi. Ukweli wa mambo, hawezi tatua haya kwa siku 100. Ni lazima tume hiyo isimame vizuri na ifanye kazi.
Haya, nitakuja kwako, lakini kwa vile ametajwa Bwana Kenneth, siku 100.
Wewe mwenyewe umeelewa vile naibu wa waziri mkuu alizungumza na vile waziri mkuu alizungumza. Shida imekuwa ni shida ya wizara ngapi? 2. Ndio nilisema naweza nyorosha hizo wizara mbili kwa muda wa siku 100. Naona hukunielewa. Mimi nilikuwa nazungumza shida ambayo imetokea kati ya wizara hizo mbili.
Haya, shukrani Bwana Kiapi.
Kulikuwa na giza mahali fulani kwa sababu nakumbuka katika mikutano ya makatibu wa kudumu, permanent secretaries, tulikuwa na utaratibu wa kumaliza hiyo kazi ya wakimbizi, na hata tukafanya hesabu, tukajua ni wangapi, tukajua pesa zile ambazo zinatakikana na pesa zikawekwa. Lakini hapo katikati kulikuwa shida kati ya wizara ya ardhi na wizara ya special programs, kwa sababu kila wakati tunaenda mkutano tunapatiwa hesabu ingine. Tukifikiria tumemaliza, baada ya miezi 3 tunarudi tena kwa mkutano tunapatiwa hesabu ingine. Ikaenda hivyo hivyo mpaka wa sasa hakuna mtu ambaye ana ukweli ni nini ilikuwa inafanyika. Kwa hiyo kumaliza hiyo kitu ni lazima kutoa masharti kali sana. Kwanza kufanya accounting, kujua ni nini tumefanya, ni watu wangapi walikuwa na wangapi tayari wamepatiwa settlement na ni nini imebaki. Lakini pia kulikuwa na some kind of corruption hapo ndani na lazima ichunguzwe kabisa.
Martha Karua.
Yes. Hii swala la wakimbizi wa ndani nimelizungumzia sana katika bunge na ndani ya serikali wakati nilikuwa waziri wa serikali, na hata nikishatoka nimeizungumzia sana. Na ile imefanya wakose kuweza kusettle wote ni ya kwamba wachache ndani ya serikali wamechukua hii kama nafasi ya kujitajirisha. Ile ufisadi iko ndani ya serikali ya leo, na ndio jambo moja lilifanya niwache hiyo serikali, ndivyo hawezi kuendelea. Serikali yangu itapambana vilivyo kuona wizi wa mali ya umma umekomeshwa na matumishi mbaya ya ofisi kujitajirisha. Tutaona ya kwamba amani na usalama uko wa kila Mkenya. Ukiwa na shamba, urudi huko. Ukitaka kuuza shamba lako, usalama wa kutosha uuze, na wale hawana na waliahidiwa watakuwa settled. Bas mara moja wawe settled, na sio lazima serikali wanunulie mashamba. Serikali inaweza kuchukua ile market price ya mashamba, kuwapatia pesa waende wakajitafutie. Maanake ukisema lazima ununulie wote, unaanza kuingia kwa migogoro ya ni wapi ni nani, na kupatia watu nafasi ya kutumia ofisi zao mbaya.
Okay, Bwana Mwite.
Ni kweli kuna ufisadi na ni tatizo kubwa ya resettlement YDPs. Lakini bali na hayo, tujiulize ni kwa nini tuendelea kununulia wale ambao walikuwa na mashamba yao au ploti zao mashamba pahali pengine. Kwa hivyo ni sharti tuingilie, tujue kiini cha ule uchungu. Tuseme kwa mfano watu wa Rift Valley wanausikia. Ukienda Uasin Gishu iko na highest numbers concentration ya watu ambao hawana ardhi kwa sababu ya historical injustice. Hawaelewi hawa maskini kutoka mkoa wa Central Kenya ambao walikuwa resettled wakawa facilitated kununua huko, ni maskini sawa na wao. Suluhisho ni nini? Kuna mashamba makubwa huko Rift Valley zinamilikiwa na international companies, na katiba mpya yasema zile leases ambazo zilikuwa za 999 years zimeteremshwa chini zikawa 99 years. Muda wake umekwisha. Tusiriniu zote, tuchukue block 2-3 hivi, turesettle wale ambao ni wa Kalenjin hawana ardhi. Na kutoka hapo tukubaliane ni willing seller, willing buyer. Hiyo ndio tunasema tukipata hiyo suluhisho ya kudumu. Kwa sababu tukinunua shamba hapo Narok, sasa unasikia Wamasai wakisema hatutaki IDPs wae resettled hapa. Kwa hivyo ni lazima tupate suluhisho ya kudumu. Na suluhisho ya kudumu ni kuangalia historical injustices, ile watu wa kila sehemu watosheke wamepata haki yao. Hata wale kutoka mkoa wa kati ambao mashamba yao ilinyakuliwa ikapatiwa loyalist na kadhalika, lazima haki yao wapatiwe ili watosheke. Na kutoka hapo tuki-confront issue ya land.
Shukran, muda wako umekwisha. Sasa tunakaribia kumaliza, lakini tampa Bwana Dida tamko la mwisho katika swala hili la wakimbizi ndio tuweze kukamilisha mdahalo huo leo.
Swala la pesa hakuna, sio sawa. Pesa iko, lakini inatumika vibaya. Hakuna mtu anajali ubinadamu. Kila mtu ana ubinafsi, na vile tumevaa nguo tumefanana wanadamu, lakini tuko na sifa, ni wanyama wamevaa nguo ya mwanadamu. Katika nilisikia Prime Minister akisema, akiambia mawaziri, baraza la mawaziri, mlitakiwa kutumia pesa, lakini hamjatumia vile ilivyostahiki. Bilioni 101 imerudi. Sasa next time nikiwapatia pesa na pesa ikitoka, ministries zenu itapatiwa kasoro, hiyo pesa haijatumika. Alafu kuna matumizi ya procurement, 300 billion inatumika. Juzi katika meeting ya Kotu nilisikia Bwana Mwite akisema kila mwaka serikali inanunua polisi uniform ya polisi, kila mwaka, money so many billions. Now polisi wanavaa uniform gani? Do you buy clothes every 6 months? So ile mali inaenda njia mbaya. Juzi tukifagia barabara ya Harambee Avenue, tukiwa tunaondoa uchafu Kenya, mbele ya mlango ya Prime Minister kuna mama mkimbizi alitoka na akiwa na watoto yake kwa mlango. Nikauliza, huyu ni nani? Mbona hasaidiki? Anasumbua huyu. Kama hakuna pesa, hawezi kutumia ubinadamu, mshahara yake hata kumpeleka mama na watoto watoke baridi ayapelekwe lodging. So basically sincerity hakuna, ukweli hakuna, ubinadamu hakuna. It is just drama. We are just acting.
Shukrani. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we have to bring this to a close. All of you have discussed important questions that the Kenyan people have been asking about. But before you go, we would like to give each one of you an opportunity to, in 90 seconds, tell the Kenyan voter why they should pick one of you come Monday to be the 4th President of the Republic of Kenya. And in the reverse order of the ballot, I'll begin with you, Mr. Peter Kenneth.
Thank you for having us tonight again. This debate was never going to be about me. It was going to be about Kenyans seeing the depth I have and probably making a strict evaluation of what it can be. Our country continues to face serious challenges: raising unemployment, food security, actual security, and it requires energetic leaders to deal with it. The world has changed. Old ways will not do it. Only new order, new ways. And we require transformational leadership that will propel this country to the future. I represent your best choice. We need to elect what is right, the right leadership. Elect me on the 4th of March as your president. God bless Kenya. God bless us. Thank you.
Mr. Kenyatta.
Thank you very much. First and foremost, it's been a pleasure being here, to be given this opportunity to address, as you have said, the issues that are of concern to Kenyans. Let me say that 50 years on, this country does require a new beginning. And it requires a new beginning that is not going to be built on the past, is not going to be built on hatred or disunity, but rather focusing itself on dealing with the real challenges that face the common mwananchi. We have had an economy that has been growing over the last 10 years, but that has not been felt by the average citizen in this country. It is time for us to begin focusing no longer on the problems and moaning about the problems, but really focusing ourselves on the solutions that can help transform this economy, this country, to be a lion in Africa, to take our rightful position in the world economy. This is what we, as a Jubilee government, promise, that we shall ensure that this country will deal with the issues of equity, that we shall indeed endeavor to ensure that devolution is executed and not just executed. We want to increase the amount of resources that are put to devolution so that people and decision-making can be felt by the common mwananchi and better utilization of our resources. This is the direction that we wish to go as a Jubilee government, and I look forward to Kenyans coming out in peace to vote in a new government on Monday.
Mr. Dida.
I take this opportunity to congratulate Kenyans for their patience and endurance. I want to congratulate the lady with hope who pulls her son, her daughter, and walks her to school with the hope that life will improve. I congratulate the patience and endurance of the young man who pushes a cat taller than him 2 times. When he feels that it's a hard task, he remembers the problems at home and is patient. I want to thank all of them, and I also want to apologize for bad governance, what leaders have done for that long. My simple message to them is, God doesn't sleep and doesn't slumber. He knows us in, out, right, left, center. You have a God who loves you more than your parents. You have a God who cares for us. Consult your God for the right decision. I conclude by saying this. Ruto and Raila work together, but today they are in a different docket. Kalonzo and Raila today are working together, not because they love one another, because of their interest. Why don't we come together and work together? Because we share a common problem. Our problems should bring us together. The pains you are going through should bring us together. May God guide us to the right path.
Thank you. Mr. Odinga.
Fellow Kenyans, our country today stands at a crossroads. The decision we are going to make on the 4th of this next month is going to decide whether we are going to continue the status quo or change. Our coalition stands for change and reforms. We want Kenyans to come together. This economy, we moved it from the ICU through to the HDU. Now it is in the general ward. We want to discharge it from the general ward and get it going. We have the ways and means to do so. That's why we are talking about jobs, jobs, jobs. We want to create a working economy, 24-hour working economy, which will help us to create wealth and move our country from a backward third world economy to a first world economy. It can be done if we deal with issues of wastages, if we address the issues of food production, if we deal with the issues of infrastructure in our country, and we address the issues of bureaucracy and corruption to create a much more efficient economy. Me and my running mate are best suited. We have been in government, we have experience, and we will continue.
Thank you very much, Mr. Odinga. Martha Karua.
I look at my grandchild, I see unlimited hope, unlimited potential. This is the dream of every parent, every grandparent. This country needs you and me. It needs a committed, trusted, and firm leadership. We all have beautiful programs. They cannot be implemented without resources. When we have leadership that abuses office and takes away, steals public resources, those things cannot be implemented. My track record of 20 years, consistently fighting corruption, consistently standing with the rule of law. You can trust me. I'm that leader you can trust. Nitakuwa kama mama, akiwa nyumbani, hata chakula ikiwa kidogo, anagawiwa kila mtu nyumbani bila kutenga yeyote. Kenya inahitaji sisi sote. Tukifanya kazi pamoja, tutaweza kujenga Kenya ambayo kila mmoja wetu ako na chakula, wamama hawatakufa kwa sababu ya kukosa dawa wakijifungua, watoto wetu hawatauza figo vile niliona mmoja akisema kwa gazeti ndivyo apate pesa ya kwenda shule, na sisi sote tutakuwa na maisha bora. mkinichagua.
Thank you. Mr. Mwite, please.
I would first of all do a clear audit of revenue collection. Parliament ordered a forensic audit because we don't know how much money we collect. And I think that's a priority. I would do a forensic audit of the debt registers to see what debts are genuine, what debts are bogus, because there are a lot of bogus debts there. I would focus on economic policies, economic social policies that would uplift, give an opportunity to the majority of the Kenyan people. I would aim to ensure that every Kenyan lives in a permanent stone house, 2 or 3 bedrooms, with the light, water, and toilet inside. That every Kenyan has got enough food to eat, and every Kenyan has got access to affordable health care. It is true that the political and economic landscape is going to be changed through devolution. And I would work very closely, the national government of Safina would work very closely with devolved government. We would devolve services, give more money to those devolved governments that are pursuing the same policies of uplifting the quality of life for a majority of the Kenyan people. I would invest heavily in agriculture, in irrigation, while moving towards
Thank you, Mr. Mwite. Mr. Mudavadi, please.
Thank you. First of all, let me take this opportunity to commend the Media Council and all the people who have put this debate together. I think it's a very, very major step for the Kenyan people. The second point I want to make is that when you look at the debate and how we have gone through this, it emerges that there are some very polarizing positions in our country. And I want to tell Kenyan people that I am that alternative that will not polarize you. There is a situation where, listening to my colleagues, their access to grind. And I want to tell the Kenyan people that we cannot start a future, a transition, when we are going to grind our access. I want us to move together, to move as one team, to move as a nation, and to implement our constitution effectively, to have a robust economy, and to be able to ensure that the social security of our people is done. I will have a government that will promise what it can deliver. This is very important because we have seen situations where many commitments are being put on the table, but the financing end of it has not been properly articulated. I want to tell you that I'll provide realistic leadership, I'll provide a realistic agenda, and I will provide a situation where the private sector and the Kenyan people are fully part of it. And indeed, the devolved governments must work.
Professor Kiapi.
Dear Kenyans, when we were developing Vision 2030, about 5 years ago, we came to you and you asked us what is new this time. And we promised that we were going to do business unusual. What that means is that it must also be politics unusual. We cannot simply have the same leaders, and even when we know they have failed, we continue to recycle them, and then yet expecting different results. We are in this, some of us, I am in this because I want to improve the quality of education of our children. I want to improve food security in our country. I want to bring national unity to this country. I want to break away from the past, and I want all the Kenyan people to be united because we are the change that we have been talking about. It is not about these leaders here, and it is not about the 8 of us who want to be president. This is about the destiny of each one of us. It's about the destiny of our children. It's about the destiny of this great nation. And my appeal to you is that you have a chance to give ourselves another chance. We must give it to ourselves. We owe it to our children and generations to come. This is why I keep saying, I'm only in this because I want to serve you. Give me your hand, and we can break away from the past. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor. And indeed, thank you very much, all 8 of you, for making time to come and participate in this. And for our viewers and listeners out there, we do hope that this has achieved the objective that we set out to. That is to make sure that you have an informed view of all the 8 candidates when you go out to make that choice next week on Monday. And on that note, we end this second and final debate, the Kenya Presidential Debate 2013. At this stage, we really would like to welcome the families and friends of the candidates on the stage as we bring this to a close.
So thank you very much.
Certainly, that has been riveting discussion, interesting debate brought to you live by the media fraternity in this country. The questions that you have been wanting to ask, we've asked them on your behalf tonight. And it really is our sincere hope that out of the two debates that we have been broadcasting for you, that you've been able to get a better glimpse into your candidates and to see whether they truly understand the issues that are most important to you.
It's a bit hard to notice that 4 hours and almost 30 minutes have passed since we started this at 6:30. Well, of course, it's dark now, but it has been an engaging 3 hours of the exact debate moderated by Joe Gale and Uduak Amimo. As you can see right behind me, I'm not too sure if you can grab a shot of that. There are some of the dignitaries who were in the auditorium leaving, and the 8 candidates will also be on their way. Of course, this is a debate, if you missed it from the get-go, it started with a lot of defense from various candidates as questions associated to scandals that have been tied to, some of them were directed by the moderators towards them, and a lot of defense at first, especially with economy, and then the big question, land. Some people have heard the answers they wanted, some people feel it wasn't adequately addressed, and we'll hope to have some guests, and of course even Wallace Kantai in Studio B standing by with
and indeed, actually, Mark, if you'd allow me to interject, let me welcome the Safaricom CEO to our set, Mr. Bob Collymore. Thank you so much. Speaking to you from the perspective of the business community, of course, questions about the economy were raised, questions about the fact that every time we have an election cycle in this country, then we see our economy taking a dip. As an investor, do you feel satisfied with the kind of responses that we've heard tonight, that perhaps what we saw in 2007 would be the last of that?
I think the good thing about tonight is that we're about to break that cycle. You know, the candidates have articulated, I think, very well their policies. Everyone is committed to a peaceful, fair and free election. And I think we're about to see a breaking of that cycle.
What is your hope, and what perhaps if you could speak for the entire business fraternity going forward as far as this election is concerned?
I think it's difficult to speak on behalf of the business community, but I can speak on behalf of myself. And our hope is that, you know, number one, that we do get through a peaceful election, which I firmly believe that we will. But, you know, what we heard tonight is 8 candidates who have a very good vision of where they want to take the economy. And as both as an investor and as a large corporate in Kenya, you know, I felt comforted that these guys know what they want to do.
Fantastic. Thank you for speaking to us. Allow me just to quickly move over now to the chairman of the Constitution Implementation Commission, Mr. Charles Nyachai. Welcome. Thank you so much for coming for the debates. Of course, the issue of the Constitution came up over and over, all the candidates saying that they intend to safeguard it. As the man really who has been charged with its implementation and that oversight, do you feel confident that the men and women who are up on that platform tonight may provide the right political will so that we do see the Constitution actually implemented?
From the perspective of implementing the Constitution, I think one of the great things in this debate was that every single candidate got the opportunity to state categorically, and they did state that if they become president, they will ensure that the Constitution is implemented in very specific terms, especially when they were talking about the land issues. And I was happy that each one of them recognized the important role on land that the National Land Commission, the mandate that is given to the National Land Commission, and that they, as president, will give the necessary support to ensure that the National Land Commission does its bit. And generally, as regards the Constitution, and what opportunity that provides for turning this country around, it was quite clear that each one of them sees the Constitution really and its full and effective implementation as what's going to make the change, and they gave the public commitment, and the people of Kenya can hold them accountable to that.
And perhaps something that would give the Kenyans hope as we get into implementing the new constitution is that the fact that our new government will not be held at ransom by one individual. And there is a hope that the structures that will be in place once a new constitution is fully functional, it will be able to be a well-oiled machinery that can run, not held at ransom by one person, as has been the case in the past.
Absolutely. I mean, this is something that, as the commission that has the responsibility to oversee the implementation of the Constitution, that we have said over and over again that this Constitution is about institutions. This Constitution is about roles given to these different institutions and organs, and of course. Here today, the people of Kenya were essentially interviewing for the highest office in the land, the chief executive. But the important thing is that the holder of that office will be a constitutional creature and is therefore subject to the Constitution and will be swearing an oath of allegiance to the Constitution and has a responsibility to ensure not only that the Constitution is fully and effectively implemented, but that they carry out and discharge the responsibility that they are given in accordance with that letter and spirit.
You know, a lot of Kenyans will be looking to commissions such as yours really to inspire confidence that with this process going forward, that you are the men and women who will ensure that the electoral process, even though you're not actually spearheading it, but as an independent commission, will be fulfilled in accordance with the law, and that going forward we'll continue to hold these leaders to account. What is your commitment as long as you remain chair of the CIC?
Yes, our commitment, of course, because the process of having a free, fair, credible and democratic election is itself a constitutional process. And of course the IEBC has the direct constitutional mandate to ensure that. But we all have a common purpose and a common object as constitutional commissions to make sure that does happen, and we have a role therefore to support IEBC. And every Kenyan now should be looking to the IEBC, should be giving IEBC the support. One of the candidates said something that I think wasn't quite right, said that the IEBC cannot be completely non-partisan. It has to be completely non-partisan. And every Kenyan is looking to it to ensure that it is, and to ensure that they do deliver what the people of Kenya expect, which is a free, fair, credible and democratic.
A lot of weight on their shoulders, but they say they're ready for the task. Thank you very much, Charles and
And thank you for towering over us there. Asante Sana, good speaking to you. Well, certainly it has been just an absolute pleasure. Mark, I think I can speak for both of us when we say that we certainly do hope that we've given you the information you need, as we'll be calling upon you on the 4th of March, exactly 7 days from now, to cast that hopefully deciding ballot. Please do vote for peace. That is the most important thing. After the 4th, we still remain one Kenya.
Right, and my name is Mark Masai. It's been an absolute pleasure. And on behalf of the team that made this a success from here, Studio A at the Brookhouse School, thank you very much for making it all the more worth it for Presidential Debate 2013. Of course, remember, when you vote in 6 days, that is in March 4th, more than anything else, vote peacefully.
Absolutely. I'm Ann Kiguta. God bless Kenya. Have a good night. And over now to Wallace Kantai and his panel for post-debate analysis. Bye-bye.